The Young and the Restless Spoilers. It was late, almost 2 a.m., when Sharon awoke in a cold sweat, her heart pounding wildly in her chest. Her mind had been invaded by a nightmare, one so vivid, so twisted, that it felt real. In this harrowing dream, Daniel, someone she had once cared for, had been the one responsible for the death of Cassie, her beloved daughter. The image of Daniel standing over Cassie's lifeless body with a cruel smile burned in her mind. Sharon's hands trembled, her thoughts spiraling, unable to shake the anger rising within her. As she sat there, lost in the torment of her thoughts, she felt a familiar, sinister presence creeping into her mind. Cameron, the one person who always knew how to manipulate her deepest fears and darkest desires. Cameron appeared, not in the flesh, but as a voice in her head, whispering poisonous suggestions. His tone was smooth, persuasive, like a devil on her shoulder. "Daniel is the reason Cassie is gone, Sharon." Cameron's voice echoed in her mind. "He deserves to pay for what he's done. You want justice, don't you? You owe it to Cassie." Sharon, overwhelmed by rage and the gnawing pain of loss, allowed herself to succumb to Cameron's influence. He urged her, guiding her like a puppet master, to take revenge. But this time it would be different. No wild confrontations, no chaotic outbursts. This time, Cameron handed her the ultimate weapon, poison. The vial was small and unassuming, but Sharon knew the deadly power it held. The poison, clear and odorless, could kill swiftly and silently. All she had to do was ensure that Daniel consumed it, and everything would be over. No more guilt, no more anger. She could finally be free of the nightmare that had haunted her since Cassie's death. The midnight mission. Clutching the vial tightly in her hand, Sharon moved quickly and quietly through the night. The moon hung low, casting long shadows across the street as she approached Daniel's house. She knew this wasn't a random act of violence. It was justice. Cassie's death had torn a hole in her heart, and the dream had only reaffirmed what she believed deep down. Daniel had to pay. By the time she arrived, it was almost 2 a.m. The street was deserted, the house dark and silent, just as she had expected. She had prepared for this moment, rehearsed it in her mind 1,000 times. Daniel and his family would be asleep, unaware of the storm brewing just outside their door. Sharon pulled a small, sleek hairpin from her pocket, a tool she had used countless times before to open locks with ease. With a quick, expert flick of her wrist, the door clicked open. She had already memorized the security code. Daniel, in his arrogance, had let it slip to her once during a heated argument. It was almost. Sharon stepped inside, her footsteps soft and deliberate, moving through the familiar house like a ghost. The kitchen was her destination. Daniel's habit, his one fatal flaw, was his love for whiskey. He had developed a taste for the drink over the years, relying on it to calm his nerves, to drown his sorrows. It was more than just a vice. It had become a ritual, something Daniel indulged in every night without fail. The bottle of whiskey sat on the counter, half empty from Daniel's earlier indulgence. Sharon's hands were steady as she unscrewed the cap of the bottle and poured the poison into the remaining liquid. The vial emptied slowly, its contents mixing seamlessly with the amber-colored whiskey. She gave the bottle a gentle shake, ensuring that the poison was fully dissolved, leaving no trace of her deadly act. As Sharon stood there, staring at the bottle in her gloved hands, she couldn't help but feel a small twinge of satisfaction. It was strange, perhaps even unsettling, how easily this all came to her. The planning, the execution, it felt like second nature. She had been careful to leave no fingerprints, wearing gloves from the moment she had entered the house. Every detail had been meticulously thought out. She would not be caught. But then a darker thought crossed her mind. Was this truly justice, or was it something far more sinister? Was she becoming just as ruthless as the enemies she sought to destroy? Sharon pushed the thought aside, hardening her resolve. This wasn't about her. It was about Cassie. Sharon left Daniel's house as quietly as she had entered, the weight of the act she had just committed pressing down on her, though not as heavily as one might expect. In some twisted way, she felt empowered. She had taken control, taken action where others would have hesitated. Now, it was only a matter of time. When would Daniel drink the poisoned whiskey? She knew his habits well enough to predict that it wouldn't take long. Every night, Daniel poured himself a glass or two, or sometimes more, of his favorite drink, savoring it as if it were his only source of comfort. It was part of his routine, as natural as breathing. Soon, the poison would enter his bloodstream, and then it would be over. But as Sharon lay in bed that night, her mind began to race. Would anyone discover the truth before it was too late? What if Daniel didn't drink the whiskey? What if someone else did? By mistake. 1,000 scenarios ran through her head, each one more chaotic than the last. The calm satisfaction she had felt earlier was quickly unraveling into anxiety and dread. The days passed slowly, each one filled with mounting tension as Sharon waited for news of Daniel's demise. She checked the local papers, scoured the internet, even drove by Daniel's house on more than one occasion. But there was no word of his death. No police, no sirens, no frantic calls from those who might have found him collapsed on the floor, clutching